She enjoys partnering with people, one-on-one, and organizations that have similar goals and are willing to go together to accomplish those goals. And I feel like we were able to succeed that with our program this past year. Jennifer Way is a national speaker. She's an author and a consultant on hiring top talent, career management, and developing leadership. She's the founder of Way Solutions, a consulting firm that serves companies and individuals alike. She creates talent solutions that are both efficient and effective to improve the relationship between employers and their employees. Sample clients include Microsoft, Honda, PNC Bank, Dr. Pepper, and of course Nissan. Jennifer frequently speaks, blogs, and consults on behalf of Career Builder. She authored the Recruitment Learning Series and Leadership Learning Series and often facilitates workshops on their behalf. Prior to her current company, she served as a director of recruiting for March 1st, national recruiting project manager for KPMG, and she led field recruiting for Dollar General Corporation. Jennifer's latest book, Caffeinate Your Career, is a collection of career management activities that you can do with your morning cup of coffee, and it's due out later this year. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer Way. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to talk to so many of you today and in previous years. This group of women is changing the world. Look around you. The women that you see are some of the most driven, educated, motivated women we have in this country. And we're doing big things. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Right? So now that you're finished eating and you've heard a little bit about my background, I want to understand a little bit about yours. So we're going to do a quick exercise. I would like to know how many of you feel like you have power in your work. Please stand right where you are. If you have power in your work, please stand. Look at these powerful women. I love it. Now, so thank you again. Now, for all of you who feel like you have power, was that an easy question to answer or a hard question to answer? Hard, easy. I love it. Here's my next question. How many of you can tell me that you've had a moment in your career where you've said, oh, I have made it. I feel the power in my role right now. Let's just see your hands. You have a moment in time you can point to. That's what this whole speech stems from. There was a moment, very long time ago, I was 24 years old. I was working in a male-dominated industry. I was the only woman in the organization who held something other than an administrative position. And, well, I worked with all men that were 15 and 20 years my senior. And one day my boss came to me and he said, Jen, you know, in a few months I'd like to get promoted and I'd like to promote you to my role. And it was a director of research role. I was very excited, but I was kind of hesitant too because I really didn't have that level of experience, right? I was fairly new in the organization. I'd only been there a year and a half or two. But he said that he believed in me and I started taking on more responsibility to show that I could, in fact, if that were to occur, I could take the role. And lo and behold, several months went by and then one day it did happen. My boss came back to me and he sat me down. He said, Jen, we'd like to offer you this role. But how many of you can guess what he told me with this new role? He said, I'd like to promote you, but you don't have enough experience. So we can't really change your pay. It's like you all were with me. How many times we've heard this? And I'd been preparing for this moment, and it was the first moment that I recall in my career where I sat there, and in that, I just had this moment of clarity about it. And it was really the first time, because I had had a hard time with work up till that point, honestly. Politics were not my thing. I'm a direct kind of girl, as most of you probably already know. But in that moment, I decided to hold back on expressing my frustration and even perhaps anger. I decided to step back and hold that for a moment. And instead, I responded with, which was also true, I'm very excited about this opportunity. Very excited. And then I followed with, but I'm confused. And I reached into my folder where I had printed off the job description for the position they were talking about. And I sat with my boss and I said, are we talking about this position? Because I'm confused. And then I proceeded to get a highlighter and I showed what I was already doing. Now, the reason all of you are laughing and clapping is because you all know what I am talking about, right? This moment. And time went by, about 3 weeks. And during that 3 weeks, the president of the company called me to lunch. And what did he say? Gee, Jen, you're doing such a great job, but you don't have the experience, and we don't want to pay you. And then the CEO came around, and he wanted to take me to lunch. And he said, gee, Jen, you're doing such a great job. But he said exactly the same thing. But 3 weeks went by, and lo and behold, my boss came back to me. And you know what? He said, Jen, we'd really like to offer you the real role. Here's the money. Here's the title. We really want you to do this job. And in that moment, I had a rush of something I'd never felt before at work. I won that one. And I won it when it counted. And I didn't win it because I lost myself or wasn't true to what I was thinking, because I really was excited about that opportunity. I didn't betray my own feelings about it. I learned to use my power. And from that right there, that's the thing that started this whole session today. It began my entire, I hesitate to use the word obsession, but this idea of women in power, our love-hate relationship that we have with that. What do we think about powerful women? We call them names that I can't mention here, right? We know the statistics show that as we increase in power, our likability goes down, right? See, you know the drill. And this starts very, very early. This starts in our childhood, our early development, really. For girls gather in small groups, and we're talking about preschool age. They emphasize sameness. We want all needs to be balanced. We don't like to have things, our personal needs don't outshine someone else's. Confidence is perceived as superiority, and leadership is perceived as bossy. For boys, it's not that way. Boys congregate in larger groups where hierarchy is expected. They don't treat each other equally. They emphasize their status. The leader, he's expected to tell people what to do. They challenge each other. They negotiate for that position of power. So what does this mean for girls and boys? Well, it means when they display knowledge or abilities, or they give orders, or if they take the center stage, for boys, that's an increase in status. For girls, it's a decrease in status. It oftentimes makes us targets. And that doesn't just end with childhood. That leads into how we manage and behave and work as adults. There's a study and this is from a Women Take Care, Men Take Charge article from 2005, but I love it because it talks about the feminine behaviors of management: supporting, mentoring, networking, consulting, inspiring, and masculine traits of management: problem solving, influencing upward, delegating. So tell me, where does power live? We're going to find out. We need power. It's just a fact. It's how we get things done. In corporate America, we get things done one of two ways. We either have the authority to do something or we have the influence to do it, and we're going to explore a little bit about both. Let's talk about authority first. Authority is company granted. Someone waves their magic wand, and all of a sudden you have authority. You have some hiring decisions, you have some firing decisions or budgetary controls. That's what we mean when we're talking about lead with authority. It's from position. It's anchored in hierarchy. Another study by Frost and Musavi I think is particularly interesting because it starts to explore the relationship between power and trust. There are 6 different types of power, which is from a study from a long time ago, but if you're interested, I've got some research for you on that. Influence is really identified with 3 specific types of power: expert, which we all kind of know what that means; referent, which is where subordinates maybe look up to and are loyal to their superiors; or information, which is the guarding or gatekeeping of the ebb and flow of information. Access. Authority is founded in 3 other types of power. Legitimate, which means because someone is, quote unquote, the boss, they get the opportunity to make requests, and there is someone who is obligated then to do that. Coercive, which is when we hand out punishment or disciplinary action. And reward. We all know what reward is, right? Money, titles, positions, bonus, great work. Let's talk a little bit about influence, the other way we get things done. Influence is really founded in 3 key ideas, and it's kind of like a jawbreaker. When you're a kid, that candy that is everlasting, layer upon layer of candy, well, that's kind of how this works. The outer layer is is knowledge. Knowledge is the easiest to achieve. It's about being prepared. It's about having facts and tidbits of information that other people may not have. Trust takes a little bit more time to develop. It's harder to achieve. It's about reliability. Do you do what you said you would when you said you would? And at the core of that is this idea of relationship. And we're talking about far more than likability here, although I think likability is very helpful. Relationship is when someone has your best interests at heart and you believe it. You are free to disagree when someone has your best interests at heart. When someone really cares about what happens, that is very powerful. They go the extra mile. Not because you're coercing them, not because there's more money in it. It's out of the power of your relationship. We as women tend to fluctuate between one or the other, but I think we tend to be more comfortable with influence. It's anchored in networks, not hierarchy. Influence is almost invisible, and I think sometimes we undervalue it in some ways simply because it appears effortless. It's unseen. Now, just so we're clear in talking about power, I'm not talking about power over people. We need power to create change. This is what leadership really is all about. It's the power to change. We need a new paradigm. And I think the way that we grow in power is through alignment. Alignment is important because, well, I'll give you an example. If a teenager is asked to go and clean their room by their mother, and they get up immediately and go start cleaning their room. But as they're walking through the room to get there and start cleaning, they roll their eyes and say, "I'd love to, Mom." Do we believe them? Do we think they are dying to go clean their room? No. But their behavior, they got up and they did it. They said they'd love to. So why don't we believe them? Well, they're out of alignment. As human beings, we are trained, I think it's part of our survival nature, to pay attention to the thing that's out of alignment. Whether that be body language, tone, words, or behavior. I mean, body language is 55% of how we comprehend what's going on. Tone is about 38%, maybe 37%. What words are? 7%. So I think a lot of times we find ourselves in situations where perhaps we're struggling because we're out of alignment without even necessarily knowing it. So let's talk a bit about body language. Business triangle versus social triangle. Has anybody heard this content before about the business triangle versus the social triangle? The business triangle is about eye contact. There's a triangle. It goes from your eyes to the point of your forehead. This would be considered the business triangle. This, from your eyes to your mouth, that would be the social triangle. It's a micro action. It's a micro body language that speaks volumes that we don't think about, we're not conscious about, but nonetheless exists. We also have what I call the girly tics. Twirling of hair, fiddling with jewelry, right? I don't even think we're conscious of those things. The bobblehead. We do a lot of nodding. I want you to think about this the next time you're in a meeting. Sit down and watch what happens. Men, they nod when they agree. Women, we nod to acknowledge that we're listening. We nod to engage. And we wonder how it slides off into, "I never agreed to that." I did not agree. How did that happen? We nod. And of course, gesturing. Think about this. This looks frenetic. This looks professional. This looks grounded. Bring everything down. It's in our tone. Use our lower vocal range. If you're concerned about being perceived as young, work on your tone. Bring it down. Ending sentences on an up sounds like a question. Ending sentences on a down makes a statement. Pausing, the power of silence. 3 weeks. I sat with it for 3 weeks. Silence doesn't mean you're betraying yourself. Sometimes silence is about finding your power and communicate calm. Do we promote people who are frenetic? Do we promote people who are overly worried? We don't. We promote people we believe are confident. Everyone is telling us all the time whether or not they can do the job, whether it be in a job search, in an interview situation, whether it be about a promotion, whether it be about a specific assignment. Every day, what you communicate tells someone, "I can do this job," or "I can't do this job," whether we know it or whether we don't. What about our words? I'm going to give you some examples. How many of you here are in a job search mode or will be shortly? Let's see. Quite a few. Okay, so I'm going to ask a hiring question. Would you hire someone who was a key contributor to a global marketing plan, or would you hire the person who helped on a marketing plan? It's exactly the same experience, but we're going to hire the key contributor. Helped, assisted, those are valuable skills, but the way you position yourself dictates the impression that you leave. When we ask, "Can I ask you a question?" I want to say, "You just did." Ask the question or don't ask the question. You don't need permission to speak. Thanks for your time. That's another big one. I hear it regularly. But we are worth the time. You can thank people for a lot of things. You can thank them for inspiration. You can thank them for wisdom. You can thank them for advice. You can thank them for participating. But don't thank them for their time. Be gracious, but watch that. I think and I'm sorry, those kind of go hand in hand. In business, we don't need to apologize. We need to take responsibility. Oftentimes, I think we use "I'm sorry" as a softener, and perhaps that's okay if we feel like we're going to be met with resistance. If you're a bit hesitant about resistance, maybe "I think" is the softener that you choose to use, but I think there are better ones. Details are the enemy of power. The higher level you are, the fewer concerns you can have about details. So remember, when you're communicating up, don't distract from your message. I think a lot of times we get caught unaware. We'll be in a meeting and we get confronted with something that we were not prepared to answer or address. And I want everybody to write this down. Here's your best key phrase. You ready? "I'm happy to do that for you. And what I'll need is..." You can't say "I'm happy to do that for you" and then not end with "and what I'll need is," because you're going to need some resources. Lead with service and ask for what you need. Another one of my favorites. "That's a great point. I want to think about that." I don't have to agree. I don't have to disagree. All I have to say is that I need to think about that. If you just have those ready when you need it, you won't commit to things that you can't deliver. And then lastly, align your behavior. Develop a proactive work style. Make sure that you own what you want your outcome to be and that you support that all the way through your behavior. I once had one of my clients, she was so frustrated. One of her best people had called her the day before and said, "Hey, that mandatory meeting that you called, what's that about?" And she's like, "Oh, we're just going to talk about this new process." And then her number one employee did not show up to the mandatory meeting. She was so mad. And I said, "Julie, you told him that it wasn't important." She's like, "But I said it was mandatory." I said, "But then you followed with, 'It's just,'" right? Out of alignment. And then develop those conflict resolution skills, because conflict is inevitable. Conflict is just merely the identification of a problem. It's really an opportunity. I think sometimes we tie that together with how we're going to solve that problem. And I found in corporate America that oftentimes, especially someone like me who struggled with work, the rules of how work actually functions were foreign to me. I thought that if it was your job, you would do it. I mean, you know the rules, right? If you work hard, you will get promoted. Work should be fair, that managers manage. And what I found is that oftentimes people would wind me up like a little toy and watch me go. And they let me pay a political price for their agenda. Anger, the best use of anger at work I can think of is really about theater. It's about garnering attention. Don't get used by anger, use your anger. Let that fuel you. Be direct. I'm not talking about over-emotionalism. I'm not talking about going beyond professional limits. But don't let people use you for your anger. We have to decide as women to be effective more than we are right. We have to decide we want outcomes more than we care about solving our feelings in the moment. When we stop sacrificing those things, I think we grow in power. And this isn't about working harder. It's not about doing more. It's about doing things consistently. I want you to pair your morning coffee, because we are religious about our morning coffee. Let's pair that with 10 or 15 minutes of career development for ourselves. What would happen if every day we took those few minutes to put our own oxygen mask on first before we went to work for everyone else? It's good for our employers, it's good for our careers, and it's good for our family. It helps us to be thoughtful and be prepared. This isn't about heavy tasks that take a long time or cost a lot of money or things of that nature. It's about small, simple things that will fuel you, that will manage your career from a political perspective, that will keep you and your career healthy over time. Watch the storytelling and how you tell the story about your power, how you talk about yourself, the apologies that you make. You're teaching your own brain what to think about your power. Use evidence versus assumption. What are all of the possibilities of why or how this happened? What could be possible? Be aware of those things that could be possible, but watch how that drives your behavior. Think about those outcomes that you're looking for. Think about that promotion or that raise. Think about that choice work assignment that you want or that next goal you have for yourself. I want that for you. I want all of us to want that for ourselves and for each other. It is possible to embrace your own strength and support someone else's growth. The things that people have done for me to lead and guide me in my own career, I am humbled and honored to be able to pass that on to anyone within reach. It's part of why I'm here today. All of you are powerful women doing amazing things. We, right here in this room, we can change the whole world, and we are right now. Take this time and take it in. Fuel each other and fuel yourself. And let's support one another. And lastly, I'd like to invite all of you, and some of you I've already invited, but I'd like to invite all of you to join me for a virtual coffee. And what I mean by that is, let's keep this conversation going. We're going to do a topical series and have everybody decide that they would like to participate, sign up for a certain time frame, or a certain topic rather, and then we'll conduct a virtual coffee. You can have coffee, I'll have coffee in Nashville, and we'll keep this conversation going. My new book is getting ready to come out. It's called Caffeinate Your Career, because career management doesn't have to be hard. It needs to be ritualized. It should be as easy as your cup of coffee in the morning. With that, thank you. Thank you. Philana, if I'm not mistaken, are we going to open this up? So I'd like to take questions from the crowd at this point. Who's going to be? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Elise, and I'm actually a reporter for the News and World Report. I cover business schools. I cover business schools as part of my work, And one thing I found interesting was that you said we should not end things with thank you for your time. And I'm going to admit I do that often in emails, particularly with people who I am unfamiliar with and have never met. Instead of thank you for your time, what's a better way to end the email or the request without sounding like you're apologetic or timid even?
First of all, thank you for that lovely question, and I hope that you sense the love in my heart when I stated that, because I think many of us do this, myself included, for years. Thank you for being a leader. Thank you for raising this important issue. Thank you for committing to sharing your wisdom with others. I think there are many iterations that are far more powerful and probably more specific. I hope that helps. Somebody else?
Hi, I'm Kelsey from the University of Utah.
Hi, Kelsey.
I was just wondering if you could actually give us some tips of things that we could do in the morning for our career development, some things that you might do while you're having your coffee.
So first of all, I just want to say we don't know each other, right? We just met today, right? So that's exactly what my book is all about. It's a collection of tips. So let's give an example. One would be find one professional association meeting that you're getting ready to attend and see who's also on the list. Maybe connect with 3 people via LinkedIn before you get to the event, right? That would be one. There are many. Sure. Someone else?
Hi, I'm BJ, everybody. So I have a question. What would you recommend for somebody who's pretty powerful and their power intimidates other people?
Excellent question. I too suffer. So I am very conscientious of several things. One is when someone comes to me, I want to invite them into conversation. So I try very, very hard to go the extra mile for that invitation. And I help set a lot of expectations up front. So I kind of explain what a process might be or what I expect from them from a communication perspective. And I encourage people, for example, my internship program. Interns in my office know exactly what their sphere of influence is. They know where their authority starts, what they're allowed to do, and exactly where it stops. For example, they know that anything inside of our office is fair game that can change anything they want to, and they don't have to have permission. Anything that leaves the quote unquote 4 walls of our office, whether that be socially, whether that be physically, whatever, the second that that happens, they have to have approval from someone else, right? And then I follow that by saying mistakes are going to happen. People in my company don't struggle. There's no conflict when mistakes happen. Mistakes are part of doing business. But they will get a struggle and there will be a lot of conflict if they don't come to me very first thing. The moment they know. And I'm telling you, we don't teach people this. And that's a very hard road to go. So I set the expectation, hey, 95% of the time working with me is going to be a dream. There's that other 5% that's going to be a little uncomfortable. And I say that day one, so they know what to expect from that. And I think a lot of times that frees people. And so think about that and how that might apply to your situation. And if we need to talk something specific, we can after. Someone else?
For excellent session.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I could really relate to like when you mentioned if like females lead, they are considered bossy, and that I have seen not just with myself. Like I have seen the perception in males especially. Anytime a female is leading and I see if she's doing really good, the males always come back and say, "Oh, she's so bossy." Like how to I can't even imagine that perception of males can be ever changed because they feel, no, we should be the one leading. How can she be so bossy? So any comments on that?
I do have a couple thoughts on that. And without knowing more about your specifics, and we can talk about that too if we need to later. But what I find is that most of the time that has to do with how I set and manage expectations. I find that if I can get out in front of it before anything happens so that everybody knows what to expect, I can tone down that response. I think what happens in a lot of management situations is we're not very clear, and perhaps we haven't done enough expressing, we think that takes a lot of time to communicate what's going on in our brain, but as leaders, that's really our responsibility, is to communicate our expectations. I just think sometimes we wait until after the fact, which I think tends to, then we have to get more involved. We don't lead with it. I hope that helps. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Jennifer. My name is Sharon Hayes. I'm a full-time MBA student at Drexel University, and this is my first conference.
Very exciting.
See, I knew that's why I came. I'll be getting my MBA at the end of the year, and I'm a career transitioner, much like many of the ladies in the room today. And as I go forward into the interview process, I'm realizing more and more that the corporate culture of the companies that I'm looking to interview with is just as important as an important part of the interview for me as well as them. So I was wondering if you had any tips or guidance around how we can get some insights on the corporate culture before going into the interview.
Absolutely. I think that Facebook is one of the areas where companies kind of let loose a little bit more, and you start to get more of a feel for their culture, because they oftentimes reveal it from more of a personal perspective. But I think there are ways that you can do that across the board. First of all, look for consistency. Career Builder stats that just came out this last year in a study that say, on average, job seekers look at 16 different sources before they actually click apply. That could be asking people who used to work there. That could be looking them up on YouTube or Googling them or looking them up on whatever. 16 different sources before they apply. What you're looking for is consistency. What you're looking for is something that helps set that organization apart from other organizations in their same industry. I think it can be simple things too, as easy as sitting in the lobby before your interview. Look around. Are people rushing? Do they have a stressed look on their face? It's revealing. Do people greet you? Right? All of this will help you understand. And I think asking the right questions in the interview, what will make you, what do you expect to be the greatest challenge in this role? What do you think would make someone most successful in this role? Things like that are the types of, how do people make decisions here? What does this position, what kind of authority does this position hold? Those types of questions help elicit the right kinds of answers that are going to be the hints and the clues that you need to really understand what that decision-making culture and what that culture is all about.
I'm wondering about the triangles. You talked about something about nodding. I'm wondering.
I'm nodding right now.
You're nodding. I'm wondering about, for example, in the eyes or the mouth, either the social or the business triangle. What's something that you see often, and what's something that we can maybe practice in that daily routine over coffee or tea or your Coke, whatever you're drinking in the morning?
Exactly. Your little pick-me-up.
What's that focus that maybe we could think about as individuals to maybe try and change?
So I think the answer is to pick something small and work on that one thing. Don't overwhelm yourself. This isn't about adding more to your to-do list and making things harder. Pick one thing. If, for example, you're trying to shed a stereotype of maybe perhaps being overly expressive or frenetic, right? Just try putting your hands down. Try one thing, pick one, and start with that, and I think that builds from there. And if we need to talk about body language and things like that, which sounds like maybe that was part of your question, we can do that too.
Thank you.
Sure. So, before we go, as I mentioned to many of you, we're inviting you all to a virtual coffee, but here's what I didn't say. For everyone in this room, as you leave, if we haven't already got your card, please, please go ahead and drop your card in. We're giving away a full suite of our Way to Work series, which is valued at over $1,600. It is a nine coaching session, individual private session with me with a curriculum that covers authority and influence, communicating to drive action, setting and managing expectations, personal branding. Let me go on, there's more. Holding others accountable, handling emotions at work. There's, I think, 9 different sessions in this one pack. We're giving away 3 of them. So you could be one of the lucky winners. Please, please join me for a virtual coffee and drop off your business card. I have a team in the back. I have a team just outside the doors, I think. Or come find me and give me your card, and we'll just have a conversation about it. If I haven't already got your card, please, please do that, because I can't wait to work with all of you. So again, you're amazing women, you're doing amazing things, and I can't wait to talk about it more. So let's keep talking. Thank you.